Okay, cool. Thank you all again for joining tonight. We'll have Jarvis cue up our opening song.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising
Right here.
sun of a new day begun. Let us march on to victory is won.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Freedom Church of the Poor for our last service of commemorating Black August. As always, we're going to get started with a reading of the mission statement of Freedom Church of the Poor, and we'll have Shun Tucker Allen read the season statement for the season of Jubilee. The Freedom Church of the Poor is a spiritual and political home for movement leaders. We believe in the fundamental dignity and value of all life and in a world of abundance where all can thrive. We gather as a community of faith to support and care for each other. We commit to realizing the abundant world God promises by identifying, developing, and uniting leaders who will build a movement to end poverty led by the poor. In this community and through our commitment to struggle, we seek to rediscover and share a vision and practice of religion that is rooted in truth, justice, and love.
Black August is a tradition that originated in California's prisons in the 1970s after the deaths of Jonathan and George Jackson and other incarcerated Black people who sought freedom. We take time in August to lift up past and current organizations and revolutionaries who are in battle with, incarcerated, and or assassinated by the U.S. state apparatus. It is also a time for us to prepare for what lies ahead by building and deepening relationships, drawing on this rich history of our movement to develop our leaders for future struggle, to share song and music and art, and to be in spiritual community. In this season of Black August, we come together to confront the pervasive state violence affecting our communities. Our challenges are many, from the ongoing violence, death, and genocide in Palestine, to the criminalization of our homeless siblings, to the growing political influence of white Christian nationalist ideology, and the increased repression of our movements for justice. In these times of crisis, it is crucial to cultivate clarity of mind, body, and spirit, drawing strength from our ancestors who have given us powerful tools to sustain ourselves during periods of struggle.
Thank you so much, Shun, and thank you all again for joining us this evening. We are so grateful to have organized this season with our partners of the Sing Network, the Black Joy Experience with Black Youth Project 100, New Disabled South, and Highlander Center. This evening, there's a lot on my mind, as I'm sure there's a lot on all of our minds in the time that we're living in. Um, we often say in Freedom Church of the Poor, this isn't a space to necessarily always show up clear, but to get clear through the process of being in community with one another, exchanging ideas and lessons from our past and lessons of our organizing experiences of today, and how to get through these heavy periods. Freedom Church, as we say, is meant to be a spiritual and political home. And we know that this is not a space for us to be distracted from the outside world, but for us to grieve, to lament, to uplift what is happening in the outside world. And in this practice of Black August this month, we've learned from our movement ancestors that it's important that we use this time to cultivate ourselves, to reflect, to study, to fast, to prepare our minds, bodies, and spirits for the struggle ahead, knowing that we are in a protracted struggle and that victory won't be easy, but it is possible when we organize together. And so, as always, we have an incredible service, bringing in leaders from across the movement, folks that I am in intimate and personal relationships with, that I've learned so much from over the years. So happy to welcome Reverend Dr. Letiah Fraser, who's going to share a poem. We have reflections from Idalin Bobe, Reverend Marvin Silver of the Children's Defense Fund, Reverend Dr. Liz Theoharis from the Kairos Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice. We'll have our prayers of the people held by Shun Tucker Allen of New Disabled South, and a closing song from our dear sister Kiki Triplin of Put People First, Pennsylvania, and the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it to my dear sister, Reverend Dr. Letiah Fraser of the Freedom Church of the Poor, who will share this poem that she has been working on. And thank you so much for joining us this evening, Reverend Letiah.
Thanks so much. Good to be here. I invite you to listen with your ears and your heart. The poem I wrote is entitled, What If Resistance? What if resistance means we put down our bullhorns, stop chanting no justice, no peace, and instead begin dance parties in these militarized streets? What if resistance means we refuse to mourn publicly, so that our melanated tears cease to be the currency that fuels the oligarchy? What if our nonviolent armies took over neighborhoods and planted gardens of peace, plowshares that stand up to the giant social media machine of ignorant tweets? What if resistance means cultivating an urban, suburban, rural garden of Eden where comrades pull up the thorn of food apartheid and instead dares to plant seeds of strawberries, peppers, and corn? What if the urban, suburban, rural Eden becomes the place where we rip up the leases that outprices the poor and billionaires are no longer our overlords? What if this urban, suburban, rural garden of Eden is where the patriarchy comes to die, where racism, ableism, and all forms of hatred are carried away on flower bed gurneys, and Mother Earth welcomes the deceased, and from its soil she produces beauty and nutritious eats. What if resistance looks like thwarting the division caused by clickbaiting, and our urban, suburban, and rural Eden becomes a beacon where the beloved community is born, where we will not hide the evils of humanity but bear witness to the truth, so that our heirs can be free, where we dismantle the worn ways of being governed by loud mouthpieces that allures the masses to hoard our resources and our empathy, to ignore the cries of those on their journeys through the valley of the shadow of death. What if resistance is no longer fleecing the poor to fill the coffers of the rich? God, help us to build the beloved community with our words and our feet. Oh, when we all co-create Eden. Oh, what a day that will be. What if resistance listens to the wisdom of the poet and the elder, receives the creativity of the artist and the musician as good medicine, welcomes the children to teach us lessons on the playground about love of neighbor, stranger, and ourselves? What if resistance means science isn't our enemy and religion isn't our weapon, and the work of politics is actually for the common good? What if this urban, suburban, rural Garden of Eden isn't a myth or fable or sacred tale, but a sign of new creation breaking into our present and the reaping of the toil our ancestors sowed to bring forth this urban, suburban, rural Garden of Eden? Oh, when we all co-create Eden. Oh, what a day that will be. What if resistance is rest, where our bodies aren't used as robots in service to an insatiable corporate machine, but instead we took naps in the middle of the day on raised flower beds or grassy pastures without the fear of bodily harm, where justice and peace is a good night's sleep, clean water to drink, and clean air to breathe. Oh, when we all co-create Eden, oh, what a day that will be. What if resistance is being fully grounded in our bodies, fully present in our minds, filled with gratitude in our hearts to Mother Nature, for stranger, for neighbor? Oh, when we all co-create Eden, oh, what a day that will be. What if resistance is beloved community? Amen.
Ooh, amen and ashe. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Letiah. What if resistance is the beloved community? Oh, what a day that will be. Thank you again for joining us this evening and for that beautiful poem. We'd like to next invite my dear sister, Idalin Bobe. I've known this woman for over 10 years now, meeting in the struggle, and have witnessed the powerful organizing and leadership that she has done over the years. And I'm really grateful to have you in the service tonight. Idalene is a sister, comrade, confidant, and I feel like I've learned so much about struggle, both in movement and in my personal life from you. And I'm just happy to share you with our Freedom Church community. Idalene Bobe is with Brotherhood Sister Soul in New York City.
Thank you. Good evening, family. I'm honored to be in community with you all, holding my daughter. As we wrap up the last day of summer and the last day of Black August, thank you so much for having me and for taking time to be here with each other. I know that's so important these days. As Sierra shared, I live in Harlem, New York, but I represent Philadelphia everywhere I go. So, hey, Philly. Today, we close out two seasons, the warmth of summer and the remembrance of Black August. One reminds us of joy and gathering with picnics and sunshine, the other of struggle, sacrifice, discipline, and all of our ancestors that has taken their time and their sacrifices to really pour into us so that we can pour into the next generation. This last week of Black August, we remember dates that echo through history. I'm going to list a few. August 28th, the murder of Emmett Till. Also on August 28th in 1963, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had his I Have a Dream speech. On August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall, exposing the abandonment of Black communities within the United States. On August 30th, 1948, the birth of Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois Black Panther Party, one of my favorite revolutionaries to lift up. Black August is not just history. It's a living reminder of how systems of oppression continue to criminalize and overpolice Black bodies. It is also a reminder of hope and discipline, that even in the darkest conditions, our people organized, resisted, and dreamed of freedom. And we are all people of faith, right? We can't ever let that go. So let us be clear that though we have so many injustices, these are not just past tense. Today we see an administration that funds ICE to separate our communities. They defund education so that our people don't know our own history of not just struggle, but of victory. Today, our administration deploys National Guard troops in cities across the country. The same patterns of punishment and abandonment continue. Today is Sunday, and across the country, churches earlier today gathered during the day where preachers reminded its community members how to be good citizens, how to be good people so they can get into heaven. People earlier today were shared a message about holiness, about giving tithes, and about personal salvation. But many heard little, if anything, about the hellish conditions people are living in right now. People won't hear about the poor crush, about how poor people are being crushed under poverty, about families being torn apart by a mass incarceration, about children starving while billionaires play with rockets. They won't say much about Black and brown bodies being police profiled and killed. And I have to ask you, is that the gospel? Because when I open up my Bible, I've never heard or seen a quiet Jesus. I don't see a Jesus who told people to close their eyes and prayed away. I see a Jesus who walked into a temple, looked around at the corruption, and what did he do, Missouri? He flipped the table. Not to be rude, but to be real. But we made Jesus soft. And in truth, he was a radical. So we also lift him up and remember him during this Black August. Jesus was disruptive. He stood with the oppressed, not the empire. He spoke truth to power, not just comfort to the comfortable. And this is where Black August meets the gospel. As Sierra shared earlier, Black August was born in the 1970s inside prison walls when freedom fighters like George Jackson gave everything they had for liberation. It became a time to honor those who resisted. It became a time to study, to discipline ourselves, and to continue the good fight. And we must remember, even in slavery, churches were not just the places of prayer, they were also the places of planning where lots of slave rebellions happened in the church. The invisible churches hidden away from the eyes of slaveholders were where our people organized rebellion. Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, and countless unnamed ancestors used faith to resist, to gather, to rise. So the question is not, what would Jesus do? The question is, what will you do? What would we do? And I feel like that's where we are today when we come into community, not just to talk and criticize, but to leave each other with tools, tips, with love and community. Because the truth is, not everyone has a radical church home to go to. Not every church preaches justice. So here are some reflections. First, use your spirituality to gather, not isolate. It's not for you to feel holier than somebody else. You can gather in your living room, at a kitchen table, or in a block corner to pray, to learn, to organize. Faith is not meant to shame, but to liberate. And as a believer of beautiful things, how can we inspire others to be believers in practice of practice the values that we want to continue to practice? How do we bring in joy? How do we practice caring for our communities? How do we practice singing, coloring, painting the images that we want to see? Second, carry Black August beyond August. All of our ancestors did more work, not just in February, not just in August, but all around the year. So when September comes and when the capitalist holidays arrive in November and December, trying to drown us in consumption, remember Black August lessons, our discipline, our study, our sacrifice, our need for community during these dark times when, yes, we're celebrating the sun today, but when the sun sets at an earlier time and we are really prone to isolation and mental health issues, how do we honor our ancestors, not by shopping or just consuming, but by building true community? And the third, lastly, again, sustain yourself in community. Following Christ does not mean you are Christ. You're not called to carry the whole cross alone. And justice can feel endless, like wave after wave after wave. But you are not meant to drown by yourself. You are meant to link arms, to remind each other how to breathe, how to rest, how to keep going, how to tag each other in, to continue doing the good work. And here's where I want us to pause, because sustaining ourselves is not only about struggle. Again, it's about joy, humor, love, and creativity. Our ancestors sang spirituals in the fields, songs of sorrow, yes, but also songs of laughter, coded with escape routes and freedom dreams. How are we doing that today? I think that's really important to call. How are we being called to bring joy into our justice work, to bring laughter because humor can break chains of despair, to love on one another fiercely because love is the ground we stand on. Justice work without joy collapses into burnout, and we cannot burn out. We need each other. Faith without love collapses into judgments. A movement without creativity collapses into despair. So, yes, study, yes, stay disciplined, yes, struggle, but also dance, paint, cook with each other, share recipes, take care of each other's kids, do a reading with other children, because we're not alone and we cannot do this by ourselves as we tear down systems of oppression. But together we can build up true life. So thank you, Sierra. Thank you to this beautiful community as I hold my daughter. And I'm remembered that I have to continue to bring joy into a life that she can celebrate and remember her ancestors. So thank you all for allowing us to be on today's call.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Azari. Thank you so much, Idalin. I hope y'all took notes. Like I said, there's so many lessons from this woman that are, just remain true and that I try to pass on to others. And so thank you. Next, we have Reverend Marvin Silver. Reverend Marvin Silver serves as Director, Leadership Development and Organizing at Children's Defense Fund. In this role, he guides national initiatives for community movement building through leadership development and community organizing. These efforts focus on CDF's network of programs with student and youth, faith communities, staff, alumni, and in the area of state policy. He also serves as manager of CDF's Alex Haley Farm Spiritual Retreat and Training Center. Thank you so much, Reverend Silver, for joining us tonight. It was such an honor to join in the Children's Defense Fund Proctor Hall conference earlier this year, or a few weeks ago. It truly was spiritually nourishing, and I'm so glad to have you on this evening.
Thank you, Sierra. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to be with you this evening here on the East Coast. To be here in this sacred space, during this sacred time as we remember and we celebrate what Black August means to us. It truly is a time of remembrance, a time of resistance, and a time of recommitment. And we all know that Black August was born in the crucible of struggle And it carries the memory of George Jackson, of Jonathan Jackson, the Antica Rebellion, of Nat Turner's uprising, of the Watts Rebellion. It's a month that holds the names of those who dared to imagine freedom in the face of systems designed to crush them. But Black August is not only about what was, in my view, it's about what is and what must be. It's a spiritual discipline, a call to deepen our commitment to the poor and dispossessed, to those criminalized for surviving, to those organizing not out of comfort, but out of necessity. And in this moment, I hear the voice of the prophet Amos crying out across the centuries, reminding us of those sacred words, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. So we all know Amos was not a priest. He was not a king. He was a shepherd, a fig tree farmer, a man from the margins, you can say. And yet God chose him to speak truth to power, to declare that worship without justice is noise, that ritual without righteousness is empty. And so let us echo the words of Amos. Let us all say, let justice roll. Let it roll through prison walls and solitary cells. Let it roll through underfunded schools and over-policed neighborhoods. Let it roll through the lives of children who deserve joy, not trauma. Let it roll through every system that exploits the poor and dispossesses the vulnerable. Because we live in a time when thoughts and prayers have become the standard response to suffering. After every major mass school shooting, we hear them, thoughts and prayers. And yet the violence continues in many forms. The killing continues, the trauma continues. But what does it say about us when children must learn to hide under desk before they learn to read? What does it say about us as a community, as a people, as a nation, when the sound of gunfire becomes more familiar than the sound of laughter? What does it say about us when the pain of our communities is met not with policy, not with protection, but with ongoing platitudes? What does it say about us when children are used as political pawns, but never protected as sacred? What does it say about us when wannabe authoritarian leaders silence dissent, but amplify fear? What does it say about us when democracy is hollowed out and fascism is dressed up as law and order? What does it say about us when the well-being of our children is not the foundation of our society, but an afterthought? What does it say about us when we build walls instead of schools, prisons instead of playgrounds, surveillance instead of sanctuary for our children? This is not just a political failure, it is a moral one. It is a spiritual sickness, and it is a reflection of a society that has not prioritized the well-being of children. When we do not center children in our vision of justice, we repeat the failures of those who came before us. We inherit their broken systems, we perpetuate their violence, and we normalize their neglect. What does it say when mental health grants for schools are terminated, when Head Start is on the chopping block, and when nutrition programs are slashed, all while children continue to go hungry, unhoused, and unheard? What does it say when our leaders propose eliminating the Department of Education, dismantling civil rights protections, and rolling back child labor laws? Policies that would have devastating consequences for the most vulnerable among us. What does it say when our democracy is so fragile that children must suffer under its weight while authoritarian impulses threaten to silence dissent, censor classrooms, criminalize identity, and attempt to thwart God's purpose for our children? We must ask this question: are we building a democracy and an economy where children thrive, or a system where they are sacrificed? Black August, I believe, demands that we confront these truths. It demands that we not only remember the past, but we resist the present and reimagine the future. It demands that we build a city, a country, a world where children are safe, they're nourished, they're educated, and they are free, not just in rhetoric, but in reality. Black August calls us to break this cycle of history. It calls us to remember that the movement for justice is not led by the powerful, but by the poor. This is not sustained by institutions, but by love. It is not measured by victories alone, but by the endurance of hope. And in that spirit, I offer a poem. I want to share a poem in the spirit of Lucille Clifton called For the People. I write for the people who do not speak, for those who do not have a voice, because they were so terrified, because they were so old, because they were so young, because they were so beaten. I write for the people who do not speak. I write with them, I write for them, I write because they are the people. This poem is not just words, in my belief. It is a prayer. It's a testimony, a reminder that our lives and our work, our organizing, our preaching, our poetry, everything we do is not for performance or for profit. It is for the people. It is with the people and it is of the people. So as we gather in this time, in this space, let us remember Black August is not just a month. It is a movement. It is a spiritual practice. It is a call to live in solidarity, to build power from the bottom up, to stand with the poor and dispossessed until every system of exploitation is dismantled. Let us honor the ancestors not only with our words, but with our work. Let us carry their fire into every space we enter. Let us center our children, not just in our prayers, but in our policies, not just in our hopes, but in our actions. And let us never stop believing that a new world is not only possible, I believe it is already being born. Yes, beloved community is possible even in the face of fascism. In the Children's Defense Fund, we envision a nation where marginalized children flourish, leaders prioritize their well-being, and communities wield the power to ensure that they thrive. For this to be possible, we must ensure that our nation doesn't become an authoritarian state, but instead moves closer to a truer democracy. New threats, new realities, they call for a new approach, a new way forward. And in the midst of great challenge and threats to our very humanity, we must refuse to shrink back from who God has called us to be and reclaim our identity as God's people. We must be more than the bearers of the name of the one who we call Christ, but we must be Christ's disciples. And if we do so, then we will bring good news to the poor. We will proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind. We will let the oppressed go free and proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So let justice roll. Let righteousness flow. Let the people rise. Amen.
Amen and Ashe. Let us reclaim our identity as God's people. Thank you again, Reverend Silver. Oh my gosh. Y'all see what I'm talking about? That was so good. Thank you very much. Next, we have up Reverend Dr. Liz Theoharis from the Kairos Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice. I know you all already know why we have Reverend Liz on, but I just want to thank you so much for joining us and just obviously all your work. So yeah, without further ado.
It's great to be here, and thanks for the invitation to share some thoughts on Black August. But mostly thanks to that beautiful poem, Letiah, and that amazing sermon, Idalin, and to hear that wisdom, Reverend Marvin. Oh my gosh, I'm I'm just I'm very moved. And I think these are moments when we have to be moved. I mean, they're dark and dangerous days. Immigrants being kidnapped, separated from families, cities under siege, federal troops deployed to demolish the housing encampments of some of the most marginalized people in the country, schools and kids under attack, healthcare on the demise, voting rights being erased, trans kids being denied their very being, right to exist. And I would be remiss to not talk about this continued genocide in Palestine, where hundreds of thousands have been wounded and killed by guns and bombs funded by these yet to be United States. It's so much. It's so much. And the list really goes on and on. And we hear more and more people talking about fears of authoritarianism, concerns about religious extremism. But as we observe Black August, we remember that Black people have been living in authoritarianism and experiencing a distorted religious narrative since first robbed from families, trafficked through the Middle Passage, and enslaved on plantations across the country. And just like Black August teaches that Black people know violence and oppression, it also teaches that a Black freedom struggle continues and that this society has much to learn, has learned much, and owes much to the Black communities who have led in political organizing, struggle, and movement building. And so I'm thinking this evening as we close out this summer and this season about my own political genealogy. The genealogy of this Freedom Church of the Poor, a genealogy of politically independent movements led by Black people, especially poor Black women. And and if we're going to talk about the meaning of Black August for our struggle today, I think we have to remember a bunch of that history, and listen to the lessons from that history for our movement today. So I'm thinking about things like the National Welfare Rights Organization, a mass movement of welfare recipients that wielded power at every level of government, a federation of local welfare organizations that at its height had 30,000 dues-paying members and hundreds of chapters in the 60s and 70s. Today, the story of the National Welfare Rights Organization and its predecessors has been largely forgotten, not here at Freedom Church, not here in Black August, but its impact is still abundantly evident in the organized struggles of the poor. The many leaders of the National Welfare Rights Organization, these poor Black women, went on to directly influence an unbroken lineage of organizing. The 1968 Poor People's Campaign, the welfare rights struggles of the 1990s, and the anti-poverty work that the Kairos Center and most of us here in the Freedom Church are still involved in today. I'm thinking about this political lineage and the compelling examples of 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 organizing and even an organizing model that has been developed out of these struggles. Um, our 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 mentor, Willie Baptist, calls that the poor organizing the poor. Um, it's also called the Johnny Tillman model, coming out of the welfare rights movement, um, named after this legendary leader of the National Rights Organization. And I think that as I reflect about what are we going to do today and what are people already doing today, um, I think we would do well to go back and think about that model. In fact, that model and that idea of impacted folks leading a independent movement for change, it's not complicated. In fact, it's kind of radical in its simplicity. And in this model, poor people are not just an oppressed identity group, but a social force with untapped power. That is about Black August. Because the poor have the least invested in the status quo and the most to gain from transformative change, poor people are uniquely positioned to rise up like Reverend Marvin was just talking about, and rally others in society to fight for a better and a more humane future, not around these horizontal axes of Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative, left and right, but around a vertical axis of bottom and top. And to muster this power through poor people getting organized into movements that can center the leadership and unity across lines of division. And so I'm thinking about this when I think about the meaning of Black August for our struggles today. And boy, we have a lot of them. I hear this phrase from the Kensington Wolf Rights Union that I was involved in the 1990s that says that we must kill the system before it kills us. And I'm thinking about this Johnny Tillin model, how it doesn't appear in the literature on social change. Um, and how we are not past this kind of political lineage, but instead, here in a space where we're commemorating, observing, understanding the need for Black August, we know that when the history of poor people's organizing is told, we can tell those stories and we can follow and learn from the leadership of of particularly poor Black women. And so I wanted to kind of end my words this evening from a beautiful sermon that welfare rights leaders paid my attention to from Baby Suggs in Toni Morrison's Beloved. Um, and when folks would share this kind of sermon, this passage in the spaces that welfare rights leaders and homeless leaders and other poor and impacted leaders were building to build up a movement for change. They would read this passage to me, and so I wanted to read it with folks today. When the warm weather came, Baby Suggs, wholly followed by every Black man, woman, and child who could make it through, took her great heart to the clearing. A wide open place cut deep in the woods, nobody knew for what at the end of the path known only to deer and whoever cleared the land in the first place. In the heat of every Saturday afternoon, she sat in the clearing while the people waited among the trees. After situating herself on a huge flat side rock, Baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the trees. They knew she was ready when she put her stick down, and then she shouted, "Let the children come." And they ran from the trees toward her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she told them, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. Then, "Let the grown men come," she shouted. They stepped out one by one from among the ringing trees. "Let your wives and your children see you dance," she told them, and ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called the woman to her. "Cry," she told them, "for the living and the dead just cry." And without covering their eyes, the woman let loose. It started that way, laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got mixed up. Women stopped crying and danced. Men sat down and cried. Children danced. Women laughed. Children cried until exhausted and riven, all and each lay about the clearing, damp and gasping for breath. In the silence that followed, Baby Suggs wholly offered up them with her great big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives or go and sin no more. She did not tell them they were the blessed of the earth in its inheriting meek or its glory bound pure. She told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine, that if they could not see it, they would not have it. "Here," she said, "in this place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass, love it hard." And so it's in that spirit that I'm so excited that tomorrow, September 1st, the day after the end of Black August, we in the Freedom Church of the Poor are going to be launching a website called We Pray Freedom. And it's a website that corresponds with a book that many folks here and across this country have contributed songs and sermons, much like Baby Suggs's, coming out of struggle, coming out of politically independent movements, coming out of political genealogy. And so please check it out. Come tomorrow, go to weprayfreedom.org and have this be a continuation of this Black August season because we need to dance and weep and pray and sing. And when we do that, we indeed cry for justice and pray for freedom. So let it be so.
Let it be so. There was a point there I was like, just keep reading, keep reading. I love that scene. That is truly the spirit of Black August. Thank you so much, Reverend Liz. And next, for our prayers of the people, for those of us who are on Zoom, if you want to include any prayers for folks in community, any concerns that you want to lift up, please do so in the chat. I know we'll be sharing this recording later. So for you on social media, if you put your prayers, comments, concerns into the chat, our Freedom Church team will lift them up throughout the week. And I will pass it to our dear sister, Shun Tucker Allen of New Disabled Self.
Thank you so much, Sierra. And again, it's always an honor to be here. This has been a season of tremendous unrest and pain and heartbreak and uncertainty for a lot of us. For those of us in particular that do this work on behalf of justice and liberation, it has been especially distressing, not just for myself. Certainly, we have come together in this beautiful space, and the Creator has moved. Those of us of faith, it has also been a time of questioning and wondering. And so I am, as always, deeply, deeply grateful to Sierra and this beautiful, beautiful Kairos team, but even more so during this month of Black August because it has not been easy. But I am grateful for the reminder that even in more perilous times, our ancestors fought on, and for the reminder that it is now our turn to stand in that gap. A moment that Sierra so beautifully articulated in the beginning to cultivate ourselves. A moment to flip resistance on its head with the what ifs that Dr. Letiah blessed us with. A moment that Sister Idalin reminded us that we are not tasked with carrying the cross alone. I want to personally thank you, my sister, for that one. A moment that Reverend Marvin both grounded and challenged us in to honor those that imagine freedom, dared to imagine freedom, as the brother said, and also to be the voice of Amos. And then to just rock our souls even more that we must reclaim our identity as God's people. A moment by the Reverend Liz Theoharis to reflect on the genealogy of this movement that was so powerfully gracious to all of us that came before us. It has been a balm to my soul, and I've been blessed every single week. So this past Wednesday for Bible study, we had the honor of Minister Jessica leading the service, beautiful service. And during the service, she asked us to name the name that we call God in this moment, or Creator, or our higher power, whatever that may be, but whatever that was for us in this particular moment. And she also asked us to write a prayer or reflection in about 7 minutes. And so the name that I chose for God in this moment is Sustainer. And I certainly think that that speaks for itself. And this is the very short prayer that I wrote from my lens, but I hope today that is from the lens for many of us that may be watching or listening. And so I ask that may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be, be acceptable to you, Sustainer. For you are my strength when I am tired. You are my hope when I am hopeless. You are my guide when I am aimless. You are my voice when my throat is raw from the screaming, which seems like every day. You are my voice when there are no words left. You are the keeper and the binder of my family. You are unconditional. And I thank you for the space to always come as I authentically am. You are the giver of free will. And for that, I thank you, even when I do not always understand. You are all knowing and all powerful. You are love. You have increased me in all ways, and I praise you in every season. Amen and Ashe.
Amen and Ashe. Mm, I want to lift up some of the prayers that we have in the chat from Reverend Silver for those who are experiencing sickness from COVID-19. Let us never forget, let us never remove our humility from COVID-19. And let us always remember that a part of our community's safety is protecting those who are most vulnerable from COVID-19. And so we do not forget that there is still a pandemic raging, and there are people who are still suffering the brunt of it more than others. Marvin Liz, prayers for my in-laws and some continued health concerns. For Reverend Dr. Letiah Fraser for employment. Yes, sister. From Cynthia for the people of Gaza who have no way out. Yes. From Mary, pray that we can start to repair burnt bridges. This is the time for that. Our movement is way too small. From Father Ty for students, teachers, parents, and all who are going back to school. I know that is right. I can't believe I saw a woman send her second grader to school with a shield in their backpack to keep them safe. This is the time that we're in right now. From Minister Adam, prayers from my mom and stepdad as they struggle to grow old and find peace in their hearts. From Reverend Liz, prayers for millions of unhoused families, trans kids, and immigrant families who are under particular attack in this moment. From Idalin, prayers for the many people who feel deeply you are not alone. We feel with you. Find our voice, find our work, find our friendship. Let's do this good work together. You are not alone, and I am not alone. I know that's right. Thank you all. Again, if on social media you put your prayers in the chat, we'll be sure to check in on those. And I'll pass it next to Minister Adam Barnes to read the calls to action for this week, because we pray not with just our minds and our hearts, but in our actions.
Thank you, Sierra, and thank you all for this space and time together. It's so important to me, and I know to a lot of us, to have this community where we can remember our power and our sustain each other in this struggle, which is tough these days. So yeah, I want to just read quickly through a few of these. First of all, there is Reverend Liz shared a resource that's coming out tomorrow. I'll say a bit more about that, but I wanted to also share this resource that came out last season for Pride. It's called From Terror to Liberation, The Descent of the Spirit of Love, Freedom Church of the Poor Pride Resources. So this is a really amazing set of resources that we pulled together from that season. Check it out, use it in your communities, in your organizing, in your faith spaces. Also, yeah, again, We Pray Freedom, as Liz mentioned, is a book, a collection of rituals and prayers, and just all of this amazing, powerful work that came out of Freedom Church of the Poor community that again can be taken back into your communities. And that book itself will be available on September 9th, but you can pre-order it here. And yeah, definitely check out the website, which I think is going to be an amazing resource with all of that content and more. So do check out the website tomorrow when it launches. If you want to, or not, if you're not already, please sign up with Freedom Church of the Poor. This is our link to just sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get all the info on Bible study and everything else. And just a reminder of another book that came out earlier this year, You Only Get What You're Organized to Take, Lessons from the Movement to End Poverty. That is out there. You can order it, and we are also offering a second round of book study circles. That's starting this Wednesday at well, it's starting Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then also Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is the normal time for Bible study, Freedom Church Bible study. So you can join at either or both of those times. And here is the RSVP for that. Again, that starts this Wednesday or Thursday, and then goes for about 8 months. So we're just going to read through the book together. And the last round of it was really amazing. So please join, invite others. And next, just a word about, so this is the last Sunday of Black August. Next Sunday, we continue in our kind of long season of Jubilee. And just, yeah, looking forward to seeing you back there. We have a lot of folks from the struggle committed to be there to teach, to share song and more. So yeah, hope to see you again, and please reach out to others and bring them along. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Minister Adam. Also wanting to share that the Nonviolent Medicaid Army's National Day of Action is coming up September 6th. You can sign up here for more info. We are so pleased to welcome a dear cultural organizer from the Nonviolent Medicaid Army and Put People First, PA, Kiki Triplin, who is going to share some music with us this evening. Thank you so much, Kiki, for joining. I know that you aren't feeling super well, and just appreciate you for being on this evening.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm super out of it, but I've appreciated everything that I've heard, and just like one thing, like I'm just thinking before sharing this video here, I'm thinking a whole lot just about, I don't know, my ancestors, the history of Black struggle, how it's contributed to just like this global fight against oppression and everything. The song that I'm gonna share is ambient piece that I made some years ago called Ancestral Veneration. It's very meditative and um doesn't have any sort of lyrics or anything. So I think just like the music to speak for itself, and just like if you guys, I don't know, give some time for you guys to just like fall into it. And yeah, I'll go ahead and share it. Oh, sorry. I thought that would start streaming. I could put the link into the chat if anyone's able to stream it. Yeah.
I can do it.
Thank you, Jarvis, and thank you for sharing this evening.
Yeah. Let me make sure I'm sharing the correct link as well.
Looks like it's track 4, Jarvis, Ancestral Veneration.
Yeah.
Do folks hear that? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that meditation, Kiki. And thank you all for joining us again this evening in this Black August season. We'll see you all next Wednesday for Bible study and next Sunday for our continued service of the Jubilee season with Freedom Church of the Poor. Thank you all. Have a good evening.